All right, let's jump right in. Today we're doing a deep dive into something I think a lot of people have questions about bankruptcy.
Definitely a topic with lots of opinions.
For sure. And the source we're looking at today is the complete book on bankruptcy.
Oh, yeah, good one.
It's written by Peter Francis Geraci.
Who, just for our listeners, is the founder of Geraci Law, which is a huge name in bankruptcy.
Right, and that's kind of what I love about this deep dive. We're getting information straight from a leading expert. And the book, well, it doesn't shy away from calling some of its advice secrets.
Interesting.
So I'm definitely curious to see what we uncover. Are you ready to dig in?
Yeah, let's do it. It's surprising how many misconceptions are out there about bankruptcy. Like, people think they know, but
Yeah.
one of the first things the book throws out is this statistic. Almost 1 million people file for bankruptcy every year.
Wow, 1 million here in the U.S.
Yeah, in the U.S.
I mean, it's one thing to hear the word bankruptcy, but to think that many people are actually going through it, that really,
Puts it into perspective.
it does, for sure.
And the book really drives home the point that financial struggles are, well, they're normal.
Right.
Life happens. You lose your job, medical emergency, things you just can't predict.
Yeah.
And bankruptcy is a legal tool to help you get back on track, like a reset button.
Okay, that makes sense. But when you hear reset, it's easy to imagine losing everything.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are scared of bankruptcy because they think they'll lose their house, their car, everything.
It's a common fear. And the book actually talks about that directly.
Yeah.
It makes it very clear that protecting assets like a house or a car, even retirement funds, that's a priority, especially in Chapter 7.
Okay.
Actually, one of the things Geraci Law emphasizes is they will advise against filing if it's not truly in your best interest.
Oh, wow. Okay, so they're not just pushing people into bankruptcy.
No, not at all.
They're really trying to find what works best for you, for your specific situation.
Exactly. And, the book goes into the two main types of bankruptcy. You have Chapter 7 and Chapter 13. I think most people are more familiar with Chapter 7, which is focused on getting rid of unsecured debts, things like credit card bills and medical bills.
Okay, so Chapter 7 is like a clean slate.
Sort of, yeah. Now, Chapter 13 is more about restructuring. It's often a good option if you have some income, but you just need help getting those debts under control, especially things like your mortgage or car loan. With Chapter 13, you set up a repayment plan, usually 3 to 5 years.
So Chapter 13 isn't about eliminating debt completely. It's more about making it manageable.
Exactly. Think of it this way. Chapter 7 is like sprinting to a fresh start, and Chapter 13 is more of a marathon where you slowly regain control.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, good analogy, right?
Yeah, that makes the difference really clear.
And now here's where things get interesting. One of the things the book talks about that a lot of people don't realize is filing for bankruptcy can actually improve your credit score. Over time, I mean.
Wait, really? I always thought bankruptcy was like, the kiss of death for your credit.
That's a myth, for sure. I mean, obviously there's a dip initially, but think long term. It helps you tackle that debt that's really hurting your score. Once that's gone, you're in a much stronger position to rebuild.
It's like you're getting rid of what was dragging you down.
Exactly, yeah. So it's not just about that immediate hit. It's about putting yourself on the path to a better credit future. This is honestly making me rethink everything I thought I knew about bankruptcy.
Oh, yeah.
It's interesting, right?
Yeah.
Here's another example the book uses. Imagine you've got a $20,000 balance on a credit card. And let's say your interest rate is 18%.
Ooh, that's high.
Yeah. Now, if you're only making minimum payments, it would take 37 years to pay off.
37 years? Are you serious? I'd rather just eat ramen for a decade.
Right. It's crazy how long that debt can just hang over your head and how much you're paying just in interest. That's why it's so important to understand the true cost of your debt. The book actually recommends checking out some online financial calculators.
I've used those before. Scary, but really eye-opening.
Yeah, for sure.
So in that kind of situation, would Chapter 13 be a better option than Chapter 7?
Maybe. It depends, of course. But with Chapter 13, you have this structured repayment plan, and there's no interest. So you could potentially tackle that same debt in a much shorter time frame and save a ton on interest, of course.
So it's not just about randomly picking Chapter 7 or Chapter 13. It's about figuring out which one actually fits your situation, your goals.
Exactly. And that's where expert advice comes in, which is something this book really emphasizes. But before we go there's one more thing I got to bring up. The book keeps mentioning these secrets about bankruptcy. Like, it hints that some student loans and even some tax debts might be Dischargeable. Have you heard of that?
Dischargeable, meaning they could just disappear completely.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow, okay. I'm definitely curious to learn more about that. But honestly, this is all starting to sound really complicated.
Well, that's the thing. Bankruptcy law is full of nuances. It's really complex. This isn't something you want to try to DIY, you know.
No, for sure not.
That's where having a really experienced bankruptcy attorney by your side becomes so important. But we'll talk more about that later. What stood out to you so far?
I've honestly, the whole idea that bankruptcy can actually improve your credit score, that's a real game changer for me. It makes you realize that it's not always a negative thing. It can actually be a tool for positive change.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting how the book really highlights the human side of bankruptcy. Like it acknowledges the fear and shame and uncertainty people feel, but then it shifts the focus to the hope and the relief and the potential for a brighter future.
Right. It's not just about the legal stuff. It's about real people going through a really tough time and finding a way to rebuild.
Exactly. And sometimes that rebuilding process starts with understanding your options, even the options that might seem a little scary at first.
One thing that really struck me when reading this book was how it talked about the ripple effect of debt. It's not just about the numbers, it's how that weight impacts, every part of your life.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Oh.
The book actually mentions a link between having too much debt and health problems.
Oh, wow.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
All that stress, the anxiety, not being able to sleep, it takes a toll on you, for sure.
It's this constant pressure, right? Like it just spills into everything, your relationships, your work, even just how you feel about yourself.
Always. It becomes this vicious cycle. And that's where the book's message about hope comes in. It's about realizing that bankruptcy isn't giving up. It's actually about taking control and creating a path to a healthier life.
So it's about reclaiming your power, your well-being, your future.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of reclaiming power, remember those secrets we were talking about earlier?
Yeah.
The book goes into how some student loans and even some tax debts might be dischargeable through bankruptcy.
Wait, can you remind me what dischargeable means again?
Sure. Basically, some debts, like certain student loans or taxes, can be totally erased through bankruptcy.
Just gone.
Gone. But there's a catch. It's not automatic. There are rules and qualifications that can get kind of complicated.
So I'm guessing this is where having a really good bankruptcy attorney becomes super important.
Oh, absolutely. And not all attorneys are created equal. It's
Yeah.
like you wouldn't go to a foot doctor if you needed brain surgery.
Makes sense.
You want an attorney who focuses specifically on bankruptcy and knows all the latest ins and outs. Laws can change. So something that might have been true a few years ago maybe isn't true now.
Right, right. So how do you even go about finding a good attorney? Like, what should people look for?
Well, the first thing I'd say is don't be afraid to ask for a free consultation.
Okay.
Most bankruptcy attorneys offer them, and it's a chance for you to get a feel for their style, ask questions, and see if you click.
Yeah.
The book actually says Geraci Law offers free consultations too, and they really stress the importance of feeling comfortable with your attorney.
Which makes sense. You're sharing really personal financial information.
Exactly. It's a vulnerable situation. You want someone who can explain things clearly, fight for your best interest, and be understanding throughout the process. It's not just about knowing the law. It's about human connection.
Okay, so let's say you've found an attorney you trust, you've got all your documents together, and you're ready to file. What happens next? What's the process actually like?
Well, there's some paperwork, of course. You have to file certain documents with the court, and there's this meeting with creditors.
You're meeting with creditors. Yeah, that sounds kind of intimidating. What even happens there?
It's pretty straightforward, actually.
Yeah.
Basically, the creditors get to ask you questions about your debts and your finances under oath.
Okay.
But your attorney is right there with you the whole time. They'll guide you through it, answer any questions.
Okay. That makes you feel a little better. At least you're not alone in that room. The book also mentions something about a financial management course.
Yeah, that's required for both Chapter 7 and Chapter 13. It's basically designed to help you build good financial habits so you don't end up in this situation again. Like, you'll learn about budgeting, credit management, how to spend responsibly.
Sounds like a valuable tool, especially when you're trying to, get back on your feet. But I gotta admit, this whole process still sounds kind of daunting.
I get it. It can feel overwhelming. But honestly, a good attorney will take care of most of the hard stuff. Preparing documents, representing you in court, dealing with any surprises that come up.
So they're like your legal shield and your navigator, helping you sail through what could be some pretty rough waters.
Exactly. And technology has actually made things a lot smoother. The book mentions how Geraci Law uses this client portal. You can upload documents, see what's happening with your case, even message your attorney anytime, day or night.
Wow, 24/7 access. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's fast forward a bit. You've gone through the bankruptcy process, you've dealt with your debts. What does life after bankruptcy actually look like?
Well, it's a fresh start, but it's also a chance to rebuild your finances, make them stronger and more stable. The book really pushes the idea of creating good financial habits, making a budget that actually works for you, tracking your spending, and being really careful about taking on new debt.
So it's like you get the second chance to manage your money wisely, you've learned from your mistakes, and now you can build a more secure future.
Exactly. And remember, bankruptcy doesn't stay on your credit report forever. Over time, as you show you're being responsible with your money, your credit score will go up. You'll start to see more opportunities opening up, like loans, credit cards, maybe even better housing options.
So it's not a life sentence. It's a bump in the road, a chance to learn and grow, and yeah, create that brighter financial future.
Exactly. It's about being resilient, taking control, and knowing you have options. But before we wrap up this part, there's one more really important aspect I want to bring up, the emotional side of bankruptcy.
Oh, absolutely. We can't forget about that. This is a really tough process for people to go through. It's not just about numbers and legal stuff. It's about real people facing real challenges.
Yeah, it can be a very emotional experience. It can bring up feelings of shame, guilt, anxiety, even a sense of loss.
So it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to ask for help from like loved ones or even professionals.
Absolutely. It's important to remember that your financial struggles don't define you as a person.
Hmm.
They happen to all kinds of people, and it's okay to reach out for support. The book also talks about focusing on the positive side of bankruptcy, the chance to start fresh, rebuild, and create a better future.
It's about shifting your perspective, seeing bankruptcy not as the end, but as a turning point.
Exactly. That change in mindset can be really powerful. It helps you face the challenges with more resilience, more hope, and the book actually shares some inspiring stories of people who've gone through bankruptcy and come out stronger.
Those stories are so important, I think. They remind you that you're not alone in this, that it is possible to overcome financial struggles and build a better life.
Yeah, they're a testament to how transformative bankruptcy can be and how important it is to have expert guidance through the whole process.
So for anyone out there feeling lost or discouraged, just remember there's hope, there's help, and there's a path forward.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Now, before we move on to the last part of our deep dive, I want to touch on something the book talks about that's really crucial: financial literacy.
Yes, that's something we can all benefit from, right? Whether you're thinking about bankruptcy or just want to improve your financial well-being.
The book really encourages people to learn about personal finance, things like budgeting, credit, debt management, understanding how interest rates work, how to create a budget that's realistic, and how to avoid those common money traps.
Knowledge is power, as they say. And when it comes to your finances, that's definitely true.
For sure. The book even suggests looking into things like financial counseling or workshops to boost your financial literacy. Those can be really helpful. They can give you the knowledge and tools to manage your money effectively and make smart decisions.
So it's about being proactive, investing in your financial knowledge, and empowering yourself to make better choices.
Exactly. And there are tons of free or low-cost resources available online, at libraries, even through community organizations.
Great. Okay, as we head into the final part of our deep dive, let's take a minute to think about what we've learned so far.
We've looked at the basics of bankruptcy, busted some myths, compared the different chapters, talked about finding the right attorney, the emotional side of things, and the power of financial literacy.
Wow, it's been quite a journey. I hope our listeners are feeling more informed, more empowered.
Me too.
Yeah.
And remember, we'll be back with the last part of our deep dive, where we'll get into some specific strategies for navigating the bankruptcy process successfully and building a strong foundation for your financial future.
Okay, welcome back to our bankruptcy deep dive. We've talked about a lot, the different chapters, the emotional aspects, finding a good attorney, but let's get practical here. If someone's actually thinking about filing for bankruptcy, what are the very first steps they should take?
The book is really big on getting organized first. Like, step one, gather all your financial documents, bills, bank statements, tax returns, loan agreements, Anything that shows your income, expenses, and debts.
So basically laying all your cards on the table, getting a clear picture of your whole financial situation.
Exactly. This helps you and your attorney really see where you stand so you can come up with the best strategy. It's like having all the puzzle pieces before you start putting it together.
Okay, that makes sense. So you've got your finances organized. What's next?
Now comes the important part, finding the right person to guide you through this whole thing. The book spends a lot of time on choosing a bankruptcy attorney, and it stresses that you shouldn't just pick the first one you find. Shop around a bit. Take advantage of those free consultations.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like you wouldn't buy a car without test driving it first, right?
Right, exactly. Use those consultations to get a feel for their style. Ask questions, and see if you feel comfortable with them. Bankruptcy law can be really complicated, so you need an attorney who can break it down for you, someone who will really fight for you.
Someone who has both the expertise and, the empathy.
Yes, exactly. So let's say you've found the right attorney, you've filed all the paperwork. What can you actually expect during the bankruptcy process?
That's the part that still feels kind of like a black box to me. You mentioned the meeting with creditors before, but what exactly happens there?
It's actually a standard part of both Chapter 7 and Chapter 13 cases. Basically, the creditors have a chance to ask you questions about your debts and your overall financial situation under oath. It might sound a little scary, but remember, your attorney is right there with you, helping you through it.
Okay, that does help. It's good to know you're not alone in that room. But I have to admit, even with a lawyer, this whole legal process still seems a bit overwhelming.
I get it. There's definitely paperwork, court procedures, deadlines, all that stuff. But a good attorney, they'll handle most of it, making sure everything is filed correctly, representing you in court, and dealing with any unexpected issues that come up.
So they're like your legal shield and your navigator helping you through those rough waters.
Exactly. And technology has really helped simplify things too. The book mentions how Geraci Law uses this client portal where you can upload documents, see what's happening with your case, even message your attorney anytime. It's really convenient.
That's pretty cool. So let's talk about life after the bankruptcy process is finished. What does rebuilding your financial life actually look like?
It's all about building a strong foundation, and that starts with good financial habits. Creating a budget that you can actually stick to, tracking your spending, and being very careful about taking on new debt.
So it's a fresh start, but with a new understanding of how to manage your money.
Right. And it's important to remember that bankruptcy doesn't follow you around forever. As you show that you're responsible with your money, your credit score will start to recover. It takes time, but eventually you'll see new opportunities opening up, like loans, credit cards, even better housing.
It's like closing one chapter and starting a new one, financially speaking.
Exactly. And remember, bankruptcy isn't a sign of failure. It's a legal tool to help you get back on track, to get a fresh start.
Absolutely. It's been fascinating learning about bankruptcy, busting some myths, and really getting into the nitty-gritty of this process. What's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from our deep dive?
I think the most important thing is this. If you're struggling with debt, you're not alone. Don't be afraid to ask for help, to look into your options. Bankruptcy might not be the right solution for everyone, but it can be a really valuable tool for those who need a fresh start.
I agree. And knowledge is power. The more you understand about bankruptcy, the better decisions you can make. So if you're facing financial difficulties, reach out to a trusted bankruptcy attorney for guidance. They can help you through it.
Couldn't agree more. Taking that first step and getting the support you need is so important.
Well, folks, that wraps up our deep dive into bankruptcy. We hope this has been helpful and empowering. Remember, no matter what financial challenges you might be facing, there's always a path forward. Join us next time as we delve into another intriguing topic,